Duke, what's with the hair? You got aspirin?
You should feel better momentarily, and your memory will slowly return.
Duke, what's with the hair?
The specific...
Question. What kind of bear is best?
That's a ridiculous question.
False. Black bear. Fact. Bears eat beets.
Oh.
Bears. Beets. Battlestar Galactica.
Bears do not...
Yeah, Bob. You remember Bob, the guy that's gonna launch a nuclear attack? You got any more abuse you want to hurl my way? Or are you ready to go in here and take care of Bob?
What do you propose, Bob?
When in doubt, C4.
Howdy, campers. It's your friend in the neighborhood, Bob Penguin here. Penguin Bob, Bob Penguin. I don't know. I got it backwards. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about here today. Mainly about just when you think, Disney Star Wars can't go any lower. Well, we're wrong. It went to the next level. And just, Star Wars to me has been dead for a very long time. And all that's left is the corpse called Disney Star Wars. And Disney just continues to keep kicking it and beating it down and down and down and down and down and down. And when it's done, it kicks it some more. And then it steps away for about 5 seconds to go slap a fish or something. And then Disney comes back and kicks the horse again. The good old dead horse called Disney Star Wars. Oh. Anyway, we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about something good at the very end of this show, of actually how Star Wars was envisioned by George Lucas and the hero's journey. Not the hero's journey, but the hero's journey. The way to write a good story, and so forth. But before that, we got to trudge through what's happened this week with Acolyte Episode 3, which, oh my goodness, this is, in my opinion, the equivalent to the Timeless Child in Doctor Who. If you don't know what the Timeless Child is, the Timeless Child is where they retconned William Hartnell's being the first Doctor. Instead, the Doctor's not really a doctor. He's an alien that the Time Lords from Gallifrey decided to perform experiments on to learn how to do the regeneration to put it into their species, thereby finding, this young black girl that was the Timeless Child, and she was abused by the Gallifreyan Time Lords, and basically it broke what it meant for the Doctor to be a Time Lord. Well, guess what? Disney has and Leslie Head Square. I like calling her Head Square because, man, her head is square. I'm telling you right now, I never knew that somebody's head could be square. And you know what? All you mammals look alike to us penguins, but I'm telling you right now, she stands out because her head looks square. It looks like an ice cube. Anyway, good old Leslie Head Square and Disney decided to go a step further with not just kicking the dead horse of Star Wars, but they had to completely destroy it and rewrite what the Force is, rewrite what Star Wars fundamentally is at its core, and it's just, in my opinion, it's a satanic abomination. We are going to get into it here. So let's switch over here to the first article I'm going to talk about. We're going to read it all the way through and discuss some things in it. Then I got a couple videos. All the links, by the way, all the linkies are down in the descripties of everything in this video, of this live stream. So you can check this stuff out yourself. But after this article, I want to watch what Film Threat Chris Gore says about it, and also what MelonieMac has to say about it. Two of my favorite YouTubers out there. And then we're going to dive into a good story, kind of like a palate cleanser, in my opinion. Nevertheless, let's get into the junk that is Star Wars Acolyte. Yay, not. Hey, parent. Yeah, glad you stopped paying attention to Disney decades ago. Yeah, pretty much. It is what it is. I mean, Disney Star Wars has been dead ever since Disney acquired it. I'm sorry, but and be honest with you, I did like The Force Awakens when it first came out, but now looking at in the light of everything else that Disney Star Wars has created, I'm not even sure The Force Awakens is all that great. Anyway, let's switch over here to the article. So, Disney just keeps kicking the dead horse of Star Wars. Supposedly later on, I think in July, Chris Gore is talking. Oh, wrong thing. That's my Bible verse I'm going to show later. Yep. We're a professional YouTuber here. Anyway, we got this article here on That Park Place, and it talks about the latest version of the Acolyte. Fair to warn you, and I'm not going to bother to put up the spoilers thing, because to be honest with you, I don't really care anymore about Disney Star Wars. And if you're someone that loves it, more power to you. But this little penguin, I'm out. It's just so wrong. So needless to say, there is a possibility, and I don't know, I haven't looked into it, but Chris Gore is supposedly over a Film Threat in July, is supposed to be hopefully having a funeral for Disney Star Wars. I mean, we already on this channel went through putting Disney Star Wars on trial, and we rewatched that from Film Threat. That was really good stuff. But I think that finally we're going to officially put them in the ground. Is it going to stop Disney from kicking the dead horse? No. But at least, as from the fandom, yeah, pretty much. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I'm going to watch any more of The Acolyte. I may watch episode 4, but then I may be out. Only because supposedly, from what I'm hearing from Film Threat and Chris Gore, episode 4 is even worse than episode 3, possibly. We'll find out. Anyway, I could not possibly imagine Disney taking and killing a franchise any more than what they did, but I was wrong. This week in episode 3, they took it to level 11. They turned the volume knob up and kicked the horse, and now they're using like a mechanical shoehorn, a steel boot to like kick the horse even harder. Anyway, let's get into this article, shall we? This is over on That Park Place by John F. Trent. It says, Disney Star Wars redefines the Force and introduces lesbian witches. Yes, my mic is on. Lesbian witches. Gee, it's almost like the showrunner is actually introducing, I don't know, their own lifestyle into an IP. Because Leslie Head is, or like somebody keeps calling her headlamp. I don't know. Either way, she and her husband, who plays in the show, by the way, are obviously lesbians. You heard where I talked about what the abomination they did last week, that they made my all-time favorite Star Wars character, R2-D2. Shout out to R2-D2. That Leslie Head Square claimed that R2-D2 is a lesbian. Really? A lesbian? Anyway, let's don't get into that. Let's go on. Let's continue on, because that just made me mad. Anyway, Disney Star Wars redefines what the Force is and introduces lesbian witches that can create life through unnatural means in the Acolyte. And there is Mother Anesthesia, played by Joni Turner-Smith, in season 3 of the Acolyte. She is the leader of these lesbian witches, the cult, this witches' coven, and she is also the mother of the two twins, of May and OSHA. By the way, if you didn't know, I also made a parody this last week. Took me 5.5 days to make this video. Over on my website, over on my YouTube channel. Let me pull that up here. I made a parody. Where's my channel? There's my channel. It should be, right here under Geek Stuff. I called it the Acolyte OSHA Regulations. Because every time I hear the word OSHA in that show, I think of the Regulatory Commission on Safety, OSHA regulations. So I thought I'd make a parody of it. And I ain't going to play this whole thing, but I will just give you a little taste of it. Let's see here. Let's just let it play right here.
I'm putting you on report, and I will be watching you. Hey, you! Stop right there! In the name of the Galactic Safety Authority, I am Prefect OSHA, and I can see you're about to violate some safety regulations. What are you doing?
So there you go. If you want to watch it, hopefully you go over there on my YouTube channel and check it out. But I was being stupid and silly, and it makes no sense, but it almost, in my opinion, it almost is more interesting to me, because I had a laugh while I was making it. More interesting to me than what Leslie Head Squares made. Anyway, back to the article. Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Company redefined the Force and introduced a coven of witches led by two lesbians that were able to create life through a power they call the Thread. They renamed the Force the Thread. Apparently because I didn't know this, but lesbians like to sew, I guess. I don't know. It's really stupid. They call the Thread in the Star Wars Acolyte series. In the third episode of the series, the show flashes back to when the twins, OSHA and May, are children and living on the planet Breendock. Early in the episode, a character named Mother Anesthesia informs the twins that the Coven believes in something called the Thread. She details all living things are connected to by the same thread, a thread woven through all of existence. Some call it a force and claim to use it, but we know the thread is not a power you wield. Pull the thread, change everything. It ties you to your destiny and binds you to others. Whatever. That ain't the... In a little bit, I'm going to show a clip where pretty much explains what the Force really is. And it's from what George Lucas made in the original trilogies. Anyway, this is in direct contrast to how the Force was defined by both Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda in George Lucas's original trilogy, who, by the way, made Star Wars. Not this stupid head square person. Anyway, I just can't get over the level of narcissism that these people at Disney are now. They think their stuff don't stink, and they think everybody needs to buy into what they're saying. If you don't, you're stupid, you're an ist, you're a phobe, you should be deleted and removed and destroyed completely. What they don't know is this penguin is armed with a rocket launcher, as well as I got a fish slapper. I've been fighting fish for a long time. So anyway, let's take a real quick of a sip of iced coffee or ice water, or whatever you got to drink. Sip them if you have them, because we got to stay hydrated and got to stay caffeinated. That's how this penguin rolls. Obi-Wan described the Force in A New Hope, which is, by the way, the Star Wars. It's not. They called it A New Hope after the other movies came out, but when Star Wars came out, it was just called Star Wars, Episode 4. The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. Kind of like cosmic superglue. Yoda also described the Force in Empire Strikes Back. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship. Yeah, pretty much, Perrin. What it boils down to is like I've been saying for the longest time. These people at Disney especially don't care about the fans. They don't even care about the content. All they're doing is using this to push their lifestyle and their political ideology and now even their spiritual beliefs on you with this episode. We're going to get into it. It really, when I saw this episode, I was not only cringing, but at one point I even started praying because it's like, this is just absolutely demonic, in my opinion. Nevertheless, after redefining the Force, the show then reveals that what the witches practice is considered dark as they begin some kind of ritual described as an ascension. Mother Anesthesia states, tonight we enact a ceremony we have not performed since our exile. We were hunted, persecuted, forced into hiding, all because some would consider our power dark, unnatural. We were on the brink of extinction, and then we were blessed with a miracle, the gift of life. This gift of life is the two twins. Following this speech and the ensuing ritual that is eventually interrupted by 4 Jedi who demand the twins to be tested as Jedi, Mother Amnesia has a conversation. Actually, I don't know if I agree completely with this statement right here that they demanded. They insisted, but they still asked with permission. Because Saul there at the last said, of course, with your permission. Talking to Amnesia, or wherever, Amnesia. I'm going to call her Amnesia. Because I'm guessing in a year from now, this is going to be all forgotten. It's not going to be worth diddly squat. Anyway, Mother Amnesia has a conversation with Coral and a number of the other witches. Amnesia suggests that they allow the twins to be tested. However, Coral disagrees. Coral's the other witch, the Zabrak witch, the same race as Darth Maul is, and Savage Opress. By the way, I got to point out, these in the Clone Wars, there was a coven of witches on Darth Maul's homeworld that also created Zabrak, Savage Opress, turned him into this monstrous type creation. But those are the witches of Dathomir, but these are not the same witches we're talking about here. Because those witches in the Clone World did not use the Force, or as they call it here, the thread. Supposedly these witches do, which once again shows that the showrunner has no clue what Star Wars really is. Anyway, she states, I did not bring the girls into this world so that we would lose them to a bunch of deranged monks. That's what she called the Jedi. They're trying to push the narrative in this show that the Jedi are evil. Isn't that the way it always is, though? That when evil comes out, he always wants to claim it's good, and anything that's good is evil. It's always the exact opposite of what it really is. Amnesia retorts, it's not your decision, it's mine, and I've made it. Coral then responds, I carried them. Carried them. And then Amnesia replies, but I created them. So basically, the two twins, May and OSHA, were created through the act of a force between two lesbian witches. Just how messed up is that? Grohl then questions, and what happens if the Jedi discover how you created them? The back and forth is then interrupted by an ancient witch who suggests that children take the test but lie so that they will fail. All because they don't want them to go with the Jedi, because if they pass the test, the Jedi's going to take them with to train them. Anyway. By the way, the 4 Jedi they're talking about here are the 4 Jedi that we see that May is trying to kill in the show, in the present day of the show. Yeah, well, parent, actually, in their mind, Luke is not what he said is. You got to keep in mind, Disney does not acknowledge the events of Lucas's Star Wars. They see Luke as what? As that old grumpy guy that tossed away his lightsaber drinking green titty milk of an alien. That's their mind of Luke. So in their mind, Luke ain't nothing. So anyway, but thanks for the comment. I agree, Luke, as Lucas created, would kick their butts, but that's not who they're talking about here. Actually, they're not even bringing up Luke. The idea that these witches can create life with the power of thread also appears to undercut the Chosen One prophecy that George Lucas introduced in The Phantom Menace with Anakin. When Qui-Gon Jinn arrives on Coruscant with Anakin Skywalker, he informs the Jedi Council, "I have encountered a Vergence in the Force, a boy. His cells have the highest concentration of midichlorians I have seen in a life form. It is possible he was conceived by the midichlorians." Mace Windu then shares the prophecy. "You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force. You believe it's this boy?" Qui-Gon responds, "I don't presume to. However, he's cut off by Yoda, who says, 'But you do. Revealed your opinion is.'" This prophecy and the idea that Anakin was conceived by the midichlorians or the Force comes after Qui-Gon learned from Anakin's mother, Shmi, that Anakin has no father. She told Qui-Gon there was no father. "I carried him, I gave birth, I raised him. I can't explain what happened." I'm guessing, here's my theory. I'm guessing that Leslie Head Square and her cronies are going to, and Potato Kennedy, are going to push this narrative eventually that, oh, guess what? Anakin wasn't created by the Force. He was created by lesbian witches. The same way they created these twins. Or they're going to say, well, Anakin wasn't really the chosen one. These twins are. Anyway, as noted by George Lucas, it's quite clear that the Force created Anakin to bring balance to the Force. In the making of The Revenge of the Sith, Lucas explained the prophecy was right. Anakin was the chosen one, and he does bring balance to the Force. He just doesn't bring it the way we thought he was going to bring balance to the Force. But he still does bring balance to the Force through his offspring of Luke. He takes the ounce of good, actually Luke and Leia both, technically. Anyway, he takes the ounce of good still left in him and destroys the Emperor out of compassion for his son. He would reiterate this in The Chosen One feature in 2005. Anakin is the chosen one. And even when Anakin becomes Darth Vader, he's still the chosen one. The prophecy is that Anakin will bring balance to the Force and destroy the Sith. He becomes Darth Vader. And of course, Obi-Wan doesn't, we saw in Revenge of the Sith, which I love that when Obi-Wan is yelling at Anakin, says, "You are the chosen one." You know, Obi-Wan didn't really see the full picture at this point. Darth Vader does become the hero. Darth Vader does destroy the Sith, being himself and the Emperor. He does it because he is redeemed by his son, Luke. So the prophecy is true, and by doing that, he redeems himself and goes from being Darth Vader back to Anakin Skywalker. And that's why also, like in the special editions, we saw a ghost, a Force ghost of Anakin. For that very reason. Because supposedly, if I understand the deep lore with Star Wars, Sith can't have Force ghosts. But Jedi can. But only because of the way that the Sith study the Force as opposed to the Jedi study the Force. It's because the Jedi, they actually can learn that particular ability. We saw that even in the Clone Wars when they explained that a little bit more and so forth. Anyway, given that the Acolyte is showing that this coven of witches is manipulating what it calls the thread to create life through unnatural means, the show will likely also try to reinforce the false idea that the Force is in balance when the light and dark are equal. Given the Chosen One prophecy, it's clear that this is indeed false, and I 100% agree with that. Nevertheless, Lucas also went into detail to explain this during a writers' meeting for the animated series Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And we're gonna watch this little 5-minute video real quick here, then we'll come back to the article. I brought it up on YouTube so we can see it a little bit better. And
Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force.
The Force?
And the Force is what gives the Jedi his power.
Found in all living things, round as flows from us.
Let me see if I can turn that up a little bit. Because even I'm having trouble hearing it. Yeah, professional penguin YouTuber.
Side of the Force.
There we go.
The Force?
And the Force is what gives the Jedi his power.
Did you notice that? The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. The Acolyte show wants, and Leslie Head Square wants to say, oh, it doesn't. It's not about power.
Found in all living things, round as flows from us. Controls individuals, yet we have free will. We have a destiny if we want to follow it. We live for a reason and must discover what it is. It looks like it was done when I started episode 1.
Oh, okay.
Because
this is actually in a vignette, I think, on like the DVD sets that came out, I think. I'm not really sure.
It looks like it's referring to episode 1. And a lot of this, like this thing about the Force, you know, in all living things that surround us is really just a capsule of what was said in episode 5.
Life creates it, makes it grow.
Life creates it, makes it grow. This is Yoda defining what the Force is. This is actually what the Force is. It's not what Leslie Head Square is saying in the Acolyte show. They have no clue, and they don't. And to be honest with you, they don't care. All they care about is destroying something we love that we've been watching for decades, just so they can push their sexual innuendos and their gay agenda and their woke political SJW identity politics stuff. And so they can turn Star Wars from a predominantly male brand to a female brand. And luckily, fans are not having it.
Its energy surrounds us and binds us.
Energy surrounds us, it binds us.
The core of the Force. I mean, you got the dark side, the light side. One is selfless, one is selfish.
Yeah, there's one of these days I I've been meaning to finish the video I was making a while back. There is an episode in the Clone Wars where they're on this planet and they have the father and the daughter and the son, and they are representatives of the dyads of the Force. And Anakin's there, and this is where Anakin really kind of finds out that he is the chosen one. He doesn't want to accept it, but he was kind of told this. And it kind of really explains even more in depth of what George Lucas' vision of the Force is.
And you want to keep them in balance. What happens when you go to the dark side is it goes out of balance, and then you get really selfish and you forget about everybody, and you ultimately lead yourself, because when you get selfish, you get stuff, or you want stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you want stuff and you get stuff, then you are afraid somebody's going to take it away from you.
Gee, George Lucas is being prophetic. It almost sounds like the people at Disney. Like he was not talking about Star Wars here, but talking about the people like Leslie Head Square that is, wanting what they want, and they get selfish, and they don't care about who it hurts or what they destroy in the process, just as long as they get their little slice of narcissism. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Whether it's a person or a thing or a particular pleasure, experience. Once you become afraid that somebody's going to take it away from you, or you're going to lose it, then you start to become angry.
I love this, because he's even describing what they actually do, and he's talking about Star Wars. He's not talking about real life here. But when they're afraid that someone's going to try to take it away, or in this case, that Disney doesn't like the fact that fans don't eat up what they're shoving at us, they get upset. Matter of fact, what happened before the Acolyte even released? They were going out and calling all the fans toxic. Once again, they're saying, the fan hate's even going to happen before it's even happened. That they are 100% going to hate the Acolyte, and it's not even released yet. Well, why would you need to say that? Wouldn't it be more convincing that you would say how great the show is going to be, or talk about all those things, instead of directing all your anger and your hate toward the fans? Why? Because they know ahead of time that this stuff is not good. They know it's not what the fans want. They know they're trying to destroy something that the fans love, that have loved for decades. And they're afraid that somebody's going to come along and take it away from them. They're being selfish, and that turns them into anger, into hate. It's almost like, didn't Yoda say something like that in the council about the dark side? That, what was it? What's his phrase out there that he said, like, the fear leads to suffering, suffering leads to fear leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, that type of thing. I don't remember. I'm having a penguin brain fart moment, apparently. Anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Especially if you're losing it, and that anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering.
There it is. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. Yeah, that's a quote that's in Empire Strikes Back. Not Empire Strikes Back, in episode 1, I believe, when Yoda says it at the council meeting.
Mostly on the part of the person who's selfish, because you spend all your time being afraid of losing everything you've got.
Yep.
Instead of actually living. Where joy, by giving to other people, you can't think about yourself, and therefore there's no pain. But the pleasure factor of greed and of selfishness is a short-lived experience. Therefore, you're constantly trying to replenish it. But of course, the more you replenish it, the harder it is to, so you have to keep upping the ante. You're actually afraid of the pain of not having the joy. So that is ultimately the core of the whole dark.
And he just got to basically discussing, in essence, his vision for what the Force is. And almost, to be honest with you, I've always felt like this for years, that it almost feels very like his principles are based on some type of absolute truth out there. Maybe those that are set forth by God in his word. I don't know. You decide.
Dark side, light side of the Force. And everything flows from that. Obviously, the Sith are always unhappy because they never get enough of anything they want.
Got that right.
Selfishness centers around power.
So what is it? One of Palpatine's favorite phrases: ultimate power. That's all they want.
And the struggle is always to be able to let go of all that stuff. And of course, that's the problem with Anakin ultimately is. You're allowed to love people, but you're not allowed to possess them. And what he did is that he, fell in love and then married her and then became jealous. And then he saw in his visions that she was going to die. He couldn't stand losing her.
And see that right there is, I think right there, that's a seminal moment when Anakin starts heading toward the dark side. Simply because the simple fact is, like what George Lucas is talking about here, that he was afraid he's going to lose something. And that's the slippery slope, that being on the dark side or turning evil is not something you just wake up one day and you're that way. It's a journey. It's a process. And I think it just started him down that path. That's why the Jedi are also the converse of that, is why they push that you try to keep your emotions in check. Not that you can't have emotions, but that you don't let them rule you. You don't let them guide your decisions. Because of the simple fact there's a slippery slope there that you could give in to them, and they can lead you down this path of, I'm afraid I'm going to lose Padme here at this point. So he's afraid, so he takes steps to try to do that, and it leads him to the dark side.
So in order to not lose her, he made a pact with the devil.
Yep, pretty much.
To be able
there
to
you
become
go.
more powerful.
I am becoming more powerful than any Jedi has ever dreamed of, and I'm doing it for you.
But of course, when he did that, she didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore. So he lost her.
Anakin, you're breaking my heart.
Once you were powerful, being able to bring her back from the dead, well, if I can do that, then I can be Emperor of the Universe. I can get rid of the Emperor. I can do everything. I can make everything the way I want it.
And together, you and I can rule the galaxy.
Yeah, see, the Sith are always looking for a way to replace each other. They are. Why? Because it's very grounded in selfishness. They want the power. They want the control. They want to be the guy or the girl or wherever it is, the boss. That's giving into that greed, that hatred, that fear, that the fear that you're going to lose everything. So you have to grip on even tighter. So your parent says, I wonder if things would have been better if he had sold to Warner Brothers. I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't think so. Because I don't know if anybody could really have portrayed Lucas's vision except those that worked with Lucas, that believe in Lucas's vision. Because working with him is not necessarily the same as believing in their vision. Perfect example of that is with Star Trek: The Next Generation. When Gene Roddenberry passed away, those that were left in charge of Star Trek Rick Berman and Michael Piller and all them. They bought in and they believed and tried to maintain, and even like Terry Metalis, tried to maintain Roddenberry's original vision of what Star Trek was going to be like. So it's no different here. I don't know if Warner Brothers would be that way or not, because at that time, Warner Brothers was under a different leadership, and that leadership at that same time when Disney bought Star Wars from Lucas wasn't much different than what Disney was.
Make things the way we want them to be.
And once you do that, you'll never be satiated. You're always going to be consumed with this driving desire to have more stuff and be afraid that others are going to take it away from you.
Yep,
and
exactly.
Of course they are. Because every time you get two Sith together, you have the master, you have the apprentice, and when the apprentice is always trying to recruit another apprentice to join with him to kill the master.
Exactly. See? Did you catch that? Watch this in any of the stuff you see, with the exception of Disney Star Wars. When you watch any of Lucas's Star Wars stuff, you see this trend. Every time you see it's called the Rule of Two. We've heard of that before. To where there's always a master and apprentice when it comes to the Sith. But the apprentice is always looking for their own apprentice so that they can eventually become the master. I mean, look, perfect example of that is what we saw in the Clone Wars when Darth Maul, who was eventually cast away like he was by Palpatine and replaced with Vader, obviously, Maul went around and trying to find his own apprentice. At one point, he was trying to recruit Ahsoka, then trying to recruit Ezra. Why? It's because there's always a Rule 2. He wanted to take over the galaxy. It's the way Lucas is talking about here. This is the way the Force is. It's the way the dark side is. And I think this is a better explanation and a better understanding of all this than anything Disney's ever going to come up with. Especially this latest junk from Leslie Headsquare.
Luke, you can destroy the Emperor. He has foreseen this. It is your destiny.
See? Right there. Anakin is trying to recruit his own son. Luke.
Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
And the master knows that he's basically everybody below him wants his job.
Your hate has made you powerful. Now, fulfill your destiny and take your father's place at my side.
Exactly, because I honestly believe that when Palpatine was saying that, when the Emperor was saying that, he probably knew in the back of his head, okay, it's just a matter of time before Vader usurps me, kills me or whatever. Got to find a replacement. And no better way than to pit father against son, or son against father.
The only way to overcome the dark side is through discipline. The dark side is pleasure, biological, and temporary, and easy to achieve. The light side is joy, everlasting, and difficult to achieve. The great challenge must overcome laziness, give up quick pleasures, and overcome fear, which leads to hate.
Which leads to
Amen.
Suffering.
Now let us pray.
There you go.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
And of course, if you want to listen to what Leslie Headsquare wants to say about all this, may the thread be with you. What? That don't even make sense. So basically you're saying, hey, may the thread be with you. Make sure you got your needle and thread with you. Because you never know when you might have to do something like emergency sewing. How stupid does that sound? It does. It sounds ignorant. Idiotic. Just, anyway. So, back to this article. Lucas said the core of the Force. I mean, you got the dark side and you got the light side. One is selfish, one is selfless. Oh, I read that wrong. One is selfless and one is selfish. And you keep them in balance. What happens when you go to the dark side is that it goes out of balance. And then you get really selfish and you forget everybody. You're laser focused on what you want. And ultimately you lead yourself, because when you get selfish, you get stuff, or you want stuff. And when you want stuff, you get stuff. Then you get afraid somebody's going to take the stuff away from you. Whether it's a person or a thing or a particular pleasure or an experience. Once you become afraid that somebody's going to take it away from you and you're going to lose, then you start to become angry about it, especially if you're going to lose it. And that anger leads to hate. Then that hate leads to suffering, mostly on the part of the person who is selfish, because you spent all your time being afraid of losing everything you've got instead of actually living it, living out your life. Lucas later summarized the only way to overcome the dark side is through discipline. It's through the dark side is pleasure, biological and temporal, are temporary and easy to achieve. The light side is joy, everlasting and difficult to achieve. A great challenge. Must overcome laziness, give up quick pleasures, and overcome fear, which leads to hate, he concluded. Like I said, once again, this stuff just reads to me, it just sounds so much like stuff that we find in, I don't know, the Bible. It's almost like he got those concepts from there. What better example of good and evil than in the Bible? Anyway, interestingly, Lucas also made it clear during an appearance at the Cannes Film Festival that the Walt Disney Company and current creators of Lucasfilm had no understanding of the Force or Star Wars. And I showed that was it last week or week before last? Either way, we watched that segment. On Pigo Thoughts. He said, I was the only one who really knew what Star Wars was, who actually knew this world, because there's a lot to it. The Force, for example, nobody understood the Force. When they started other ones after I sold the company, a lot of the ideas that were in the original sort of got lost. But that's the way it is. You give it up, he added. So, there you go. There you have it. And it's actually what's happened. We can see that clearly right now in this latest show by Disney, The Acolyte. It's obvious these people don't know. I mean, like I showed last week, the actor who's playing the Jedi Yord, he honestly believes that Anakin Skywalker is the one who destroyed the Death Star. And I say that because he not only said that in an interview, but he also said that at Star Wars Celebration. He said it on 2 different occasions. That is a clear indication to you that they don't know the lore. They don't understand Star Wars. They don't understand the Force. They don't understand this universe. And it's obvious. They don't care. It's not what they're doing. It's not why they do this stuff. So, let's listen to Chris Gore, not Chris Thor. I called him Chris Thor. Chris Gore and Alan Ng over on Film Threat. He's the same guy that we watched several months ago, the putting Disney Star Wars on trial. And I wanted to get his perspective on this, and then we'll also watch what MelonieMac has to say about this as well. This is on, he also did another review, but once again, the link to this video is down in the description. The Acolyte episode 3, no coming back from this. And of course, I've got my profanity filter on there, so I think I do. Nope, it will be now.
Alan, let's go. It's time to talk about. Alan, let's go. It's time to talk about Acolyte episode 3. You were the one who warned me. You warned me about this. Now that everyone has seen it and the memes are on fire, the reaction is across the board. I mean, it's either wildly negative, this is just bad, and the people who are the defenders, they're really scrambling.
Yeah, they're coping. I gotta ask you. I texted you. I said you need to see episode 3.
Wait, I let me check something real quick here. I just popped in my head. I want to see the Rotten Tomatoes score on the Acolyte right now. I want to see what it is. It's dropped. Oh, look at that. The audience score. I don't know if you can see this or not. Let me zoom in a little bit. On the Acolyte show, the audience score, last time I checked this, it was at 39%. It's dropped down to 20%. I kind of always ignore the reviewer score because the reviewer score most times nowadays tend to be those that have access and they don't want to lose their access. So they're going to say good things. They want to shill for the show, even if they don't agree with it. They don't want to lose their access. Whatever. More power to you if that's what you want to do. To me, I'd much rather be honest and just, I don't care if I have access. I don't have access to anything except for iced coffee. Sip them if you got them. But nevertheless, this just keeps getting worse. So this is after episode 3 that aired. I wonder what it's going to be like after episode 4. I'm guessing people have already just tuned out. They just have. All right, so let's go back to... Oh, nope. That's MelonieMac. There we go. Once again, professional YouTuber. Not... Let's go.
What were your feelings when you got through episode 3?
I thought, first of all, the acting was so bad. The 2 young girls, which I assume was one actor.
No, they were twins.
They were twins. They were not very good. They were not very good. I'm sorry. They were not. I don't think. And look, no one should harass these kids. They were cast. It's not their fault. They were poorly directed, but they didn't pull it off, if you ask me. There needs to be some sense of the relationship. It just seemed dumb.
But what I'm asking you is, did you feel the same way after episode 3 that I felt?
Yeah, I watched it twice, and it's still...
Boy, he was a glutton for punishment. I don't think I can watch this thing a second time. Once was good enough for me.
It does not hold up. Does not make sense. The whole thing of, like, he's so mad at her sister because she's going to go away to be a Jedi. She prevents her from doing it by attempting to murder her. So if her sister's either going to go and be a Jedi and be gone, or be murdered and gone. What? And you'll see in episode 4, it seems like they're setting up May to be redeemed. It's just, none of this makes sense. I mean, you can look, when other people were criticizing the show for having that fire in space, and I get it. It's like sitting there and like, it's like burning and like, okay, like, all right. I can forgive that because plenty of sci-fi plays fast and loose with rules. You've got sound in space. You've got all this shenanigans.
Yeah, fire in space.
I'm okay with that. They could have made it more believable. It's an oxygen leak and there's fire there, or it was somehow, whatever it is. I'm okay with it. that's the least of the show's problems.
It is. I agree.
I know when people were
Andromeda's
talking
land-
about the fire in space, the only thing in my mind was, but you haven't seen episode 3 yet.
Well, Alan, there's so many. I mean, in addition to the witches coven, which are their Sith witches, or as they say, our kind are not accepted in the galaxy. The galaxy isn't kind.
Women like us.
Yes, the galaxy isn't kind to women like us. Wink, wink, wink. I mean, look, I watched it twice. It gets worse the more you think about it. And I don't know if Star Wars is recoverable. I mean, I checked out after Obi-Wan, right?
Yeah, I agree with him here. I don't think Star Wars is recoverable. Simply because I think this is their timeless child moment, like it is with Doctor Who. And Doctor Who's timeless child was a retcon. It changed who the Doctor was, changed the whole series. It changed 50 years of Doctor Who to pander to some political ideology. Well, guess what? Disney's done the exact same thing again that the BBC did with Doctor Who. They're doing it in this episode right here. They're changing what Star Wars is. Actually, I should say what Disney Star Wars is. And what the meaning of the Force. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. The sewing thread. It means. It's just. And I'm going to bring it up right now. There's a part in here, this really kind of bothers me. And let me bring it up here. Update it. Yeah, like I said, professional YouTuber here. I'm not going to play this, obviously, but we can pan through some of this. This one little part right here. This is in episode 3. This is this witch's coven, and they're going to perform this ritual, this ceremony. Now, I have, regardless of what they did, what Disney is doing with what the Force is and what Star Wars is, I have a problem with this on a spiritual level. Just to get into a little bit of my backstory, before I became a Christian penguin, there was a point in my life that I came very close to getting into Satanism. And I recognized the signs and recognized the tendency of things going demonic and the rituals and some of the ceremonies which I've seen and weren't involved in, but I walked away from because it scared me. And this is the vibe I got while watching this show and this part of the episode. This is about 12 minutes in to where got these. That's I've already forgot her name. I don't care. This is Zadbrak. It's one of the 2 lesbian witches that gave birth to the twins, and this coven right here is getting ready to do this ceremony, and they're doing this chanting and raising their hands up, and the only thing they didn't do is some type of ritual sacrifice, but it felt so demonic. It felt so satanic to me. And I already, to be honest with you, I never really liked the witches part, the witches of Dathomir and Clone Wars. I never cared for it. But this is going to the next level with it. Irregardless of them being lesbian or whatever they're trying to push here, this is taking it to the next level of having some type of demonic satanic ritual in the middle of Star Wars. Because I got those vibes that I had years ago before I became a Christian. This freaked me out. I started praying when I saw this. It's just wrong. This is taking something that should be just a story and now making it having a spiritual context. No bones about it. They are pushing their spiritual beliefs on fans. They are trying to push a demonic, satanic narrative, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that Leslie Head Square and her husband are actually in a witch's coven of some sort, or part of the occult. I don't know. It's just, this reeks of a spiritual evilness about it. So look at that. Look at this. This is when they start doing this chanting over these two girls. I don't know. It just really, really bothers me. It irks me. I just needed to point that out. Let's get back to sorry, I'm going on a little rant there. Let's get back to Chris Gore and his thoughts on this, but something he said made me think about it, and I wanted to share it. I don't know. I never would have thought to see such a beloved franchise like Star Wars to be treated this way. Am I surprised? No. That's the way this world is going. They're selfish, they're narcissistic, they believe what they believe everybody else should believe. It's evil, it's satanic, it's demonic, it's not of God. And if anything kicked me further from being involved with this latest iteration of Star Wars, this right here, I think, has taken me over the edge. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to watch episode 4 or not. I know I'm not going to watch past episode 4. Forget it. This show is utter destruction. Not only for the IP, but for your soul.
And I'm only checking in out of morbid curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. When I saw episode 3, the first thing I thought about was, 10-year-old me who saw A New Hope. And then, 15, 16-year-old me who saw Return of the Jedi. And thinking to myself, how did we get here?
Exactly.
Not in my wildest imagination would I ever thought that if I were to logically follow the progress of Star Wars as a franchise and as a series of movies, never in my wildest imagination would I have come across a coven of witches. And
100% agree. 100% agree, Alan. I never would have thought that they'd gone this direction.
And it was at that point that I realized this brand is not, Star Wars is not for me anymore. Disney has decided that
yeah, it's not for me either.
Old school fans don't matter anymore. and that we're just going to tell our own damn stories. And so, to hell with the rest of you. Thanks for the money. And gratefully, all that money that I spent went to George Lucas. None of it went to Disney. And so, you're welcome. Star Wars is yours. Do with it what you will. I am officially off the ride.
Sorry about that, Alan.
No problem.
Continue.
No, that was it. It's this is what I felt like when I tweeted everything I tweeted. It's over. When we got the first 4 episodes, so we got to binge the whole thing. And I remember after this 3rd episode, going into the 4th episode, I just remember thinking I really could care less what this 4th episode is about.
Right.
Because
yeah, this has gone for me. This has gone from being apathy to I'm disgusted. 100% disgusted. 100% just done. Put a fork in this penguin because I'm done. Never again.
I checked out. The only thing I'll say about it is I'm kind of curious as to who the Smiley Sith is, and then also I have to believe that there's another flashback coming because it's still unanswered as to what the Jedi actually did.
Yeah,
and
right.
I have to feel like that's coming in the next 3 episodes.
What drove Torben to off himself?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because just
the only white male in the whole show, by the way, was floating in the air for 10 years in meditation. When he did finally wake up, took poison, and apologized, asking for forgiveness from May, and then died. Gee, that sounds like a narrative of some sort. Yeah, that's exactly what they want. That's what Holiday. I mean, I've talked about this before. Hollywood's mantra right now is pale, male, pale, and stale is the mantra.
Just based on this, it doesn't answer that question. The other thing is, who is Smilo Ren, the Dark Jedi, or the Sith that's training May? Who that is, I think it's pretty clear. The only thing that would make dramatic sense is if it was Mother Anastasia, which is played by Jodie Turner-Smith. That is who that character is. It's either that or the. Right,
if it's her, it's not a surprise. This buildup is, okay, it's her. To me, that's not creative at all.
Right.
Just because it seems obvious.
It's very obvious. And there will be a reveal, and someone's going to say, I am your mother. Wait, no. I am your mother. That sounds like Yoda.
Yeah, pretty much.
No.
This we'll know.
Problem is,
we will know. We should do a show on Tuesday, the 16th of July, just to get that out of our system. We'll do it after that.
All right.
After the show is over.
Final
debrief.
day.
And the funeral is the next day.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. So they're going to do a funeral on July 17th, it looks like, of Disney Star Wars. Finally, having a funeral service for them and burying it. Good. And we'll be reporting that here on Penguin Tots.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the 2 twins are going to reconcile. May will be forgiven for the people she's murdered. And they will combine the power of 1, the power of 2, the power of May. They will go against Smilo Ren.
Yeah.
And she will be revealed, and it's going to be Mother Anastasia. Mm-hmm. It's pretty obvious.
It is.
And her 2 Padawans. See, if I were them, I would declare that this series should be the origin of the Sith. So whoever Smiler Ren is, this is the first Sith. And I would figure out a way
No, you can't. The Sith have not been seen in a millennia. That's 1,000 years. That
but
was
no one
in
cares.
Phantom Menace.
Oh yeah,
No.
okay, yeah, they researched it, and they're following lore to a T.
Alan.
So I'm just gonna say this is
Yeah,
this
they
is the
researched
origin
it.
of the Sith. You have the two twins. One wants to be a Jedi, the other wants to be a Sith. And if I were a smart writer, I would say the reality is I want to switch them. I want to turn the one who wants to be a Jedi in evil, and then vice versa, and it becomes a duel to the death between the two twins. One of them survives and becomes the second Sith to the main Sith.
Well,
that would be more interesting to me than the direction I see this going.
The other thing is there's the Immaculate Conception, which was introduced.
Yeah,
that's how Anakin came to be, and it's now implied that there was some involvement with Shmi Skywalker, may have been a part of this coven, or later will
See
be
what I
discovered
mean?
to have been a part of the coven.
They are creatively bankrupt. They can't come up with anything on their own. They just want to take what is already given and just rewrite it, reuse it, destroy it to fit their narrative or their lifestyle or the message they're trying to send out. The message, by the way. The message! Anyway.
It's all infuriating. It's all just makes it this fanfic. And I mean, I talked to someone who I told, oh my God, this is so bad. Said I undersold how bad it was. It's bad. It's bad. So, Alan, any final thoughts?
I was looking at my notes in terms of the Immaculate Conception. The tension there is that the witches don't want the Jedi to figure out how they did it.
Right.
So it was something intentional. It wasn't something the Force did. It was something the witches intentionally did.
Well,
and it's just, again, how did we get here? How is this the natural progression and evolution of the Star Wars franchise?
Yeah.
It's been taken over by Disney, and they don't care. So, yeah, there hasn't been a Sith for 1,000 years. Well, why does that matter now? When does lore now actually matter to Disney Star Wars?
Right, because what they're basically doing here, like what Alan is talking about, they're creating their own narrative. They really are. They don't care about everything that's come before because all they want to do is destroy that anyway so they can push their own narrative. And it's clear they don't even understand what that is themselves.
I don't think it matters, and they are rewriting it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, because we talked about they have fundamentally changed the nature of the Force. You know, the discussion goes on, and I've heard many people talk about it. That is it just merely the witches perceiving the Force in their own way, such as how religions perceive God?
Right.
And it just everything this show does is just fundamentally changing everything we've known about Star Wars and good and evil. That line, it's what is it? It's not about good and evil, but it's about power and who uses it and how it's used.
Yeah, right.
You know, this is the biggest frustration I have with this series is that idea of good and evil. You know, because we have now injected current culture into Star Wars. Because you could politically line up with the story that's going on here. For example, the witches have been exiled to this planet by the
and from a cultural standpoint, what Alan is actually just defined there is a thing called postmodernism, to where everybody else's truth is relative to themselves. In other words, you have your truth, I have my truth, and it's all relative. So what you say is evil is not the same thing as what I say is evil, or what you say is good is not the same thing as what I say is good. The difference is, I honestly believe we are in a postmodernism culture on steroids, to where they have gone this step further and saying, okay, my evil and my definition of good and evil and my truth are not the same as yours, and guess what? You aren't allowed to believe yours anymore. You got to believe mine. That's the difference.
By the Jedi. Well, I mean, where in the world out there today is one country exiling another subsection of its country to a certain area? The other thing is the Jedi come in to take these children to make them Jedi. I just saw a documentary about basically about the Native Americans, and how the white man went into the reservations, pulled kids out, and sent them to assimilation schools and boarding schools. Seems like that's what's going on here too.
Yeah, make no mistake, every single thing they write is not about a good story. It's about symbolism. It's about their message that they want to spend, that they want to put out there. They want to indoctrinate everyone. That's why they're doing what they're doing. They want everybody to believe the way they do. Well, it could come to that someday, parent. I don't know. The worst they could do is kill you. Yeah. Well, if you read what's going to happen in the end times in the Bible, it's very, very real what could happen like that. That those that believe that Jesus Christ is Lord and that are Christians may have to face that possibility someday.
And then the whole police thing. We've talked about how the Jedi are now cops. Well, used to be we respected cops, but now cops have, Black Lives Matter. Yeah.
They're even
shout out to cops. Cops risk their lives daily to protect us and to save and to keep us safe. So they are doing a service that I personally couldn't do. Not to mention, us little penguins aren't really all that threatening looking. Most people look at us and go, "Oh, look at that cute little penguin." Right. But nevertheless, I respect and shout out to those that are cops, and firemen, and military that put their lives daily on the line so that we can be safe in this country. We should not ignore that.
Even in episode 1 and 2, they are do procedural like cops.
Mm-hmm.
They come to detain, OSHA. They say things like stop in the name of the Republic and the Jedi Order. That's like, they literally act like cops, which doesn't make Star Wars otherworldly, which was so cool about it. It's like, it was something like you'd never seen. It wasn't quite familiar. In some ways, yes.
Star Wars
other ways, no.
An analogy to what's happening
and this
today.
coven is not presented as good or evil, but definitely the Jedi are presented as evil so far in this. I don't think you can walk away from where we are today and not think that the problem with what's going on in the universe is the Jedi.
Pretty much. That's what they think. So let me bring you into a theory here I have. I've been thinking about this lately, especially about the latest shows that Disney Star Wars is producing in Star Wars. Here's my theory. Somebody brought this up in chat the other day in a live stream I was watching, and got me thinking. What if, besides the fact that they're trying to push their narrative and their ideology and their politics on everybody and their beliefs and try to call good evil and try to call evil good, what if they're actually trying to make stuff so bad, so repulsive, that it makes the sequel trilogies look good in comparison. Somebody said that the other day, and I'm going, oh my goodness, that very well could be the reality of this situation. Because I never thought I'd say this. I never thought I would be the type that would feel this way. But if I had to choose between watching the Acolyte show, even just the first 3 episodes, which is all I've seen, if I had a choice right now, somebody said, okay, if you had to watch the Acolyte or one of the sequel trilogy movies, which would you choose? And I never thought I would say the sequel trilogy movies. Even like The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker. I never thought I'd feel that way. That just kind of stunned me. So, I just thought I'd share that little theory I have out there. Let me know what you think about that. If you agree with that theory, or if neither's not an option, Perrin. I'm talking about if you were given no choice, held at gunpoint, that you had to, and I know what you're going to say, just let them shoot you. Well, whatever. I'm talking about from a just watching something situation. If you were given the choice between the Acolyte and the sequel trilogy, I almost feel like maybe that's been their underlying plan all along, is to make everything look so bad that the sequel trilogies all of a sudden look halfway decent. Just like when the sequel trilogies were made, it made the prequels not look as bad. I mean, granted, there's parts of the prequels are just not good, in my opinion. And I'm not the only Star Wars fan that feels that way about Lucas Star Wars. But in the light of the sequel trilogies, the prequels look pretty good. Not as good as the original trilogy, but still. In comparison to the Acolyte, though, the sequel trilogy actually looks better. Which I never thought I'd say. I never thought I'd feel that way. It's scary. And I'm not sure what to think about that. But if you happen to... well, my 2 little boys love Jar Jar. The only thing I find that I like about Jar Jar is I can do his voice a little bit. Me's a be thinking, you's a be crazy for like a Jar Jar Binks. Because he's fun to talk like that, but I don't know if I like Jar Jar per se or not. I mean, he's comic relief. But anyway, I just never thought I'd feel this way. And so I'm curious if you're watching this on Memorex and you're watching this after the live stream's over with. I'd be curious about your thoughts. If you have a thought about this, go ahead and leave a comment down there in the description. Let me know what you think about this theory I have. Whether or not is that their underlying plan, their secret agenda that they've had all along. Not only do they want to push their political agenda and their ideology, but they want to make everything look so bad that the sequels look good. I don't know. Anyway, let's switch over here to, let's see what another YouTuber I like to watch, MelonieMac, who is also a Christian, because she also does, like, she has another channel that she reads the Bible on, which is really kind of cool, and I watch that sometimes. Either way, the link to this video, of course, is down in the description, but we're going to watch what she has to say about this, because I agree with a little bit of what she says. Basically, she's saying episode 3 is a severe cringe fest, and I agree. So let's get into it.
As if Star Wars The Acolyte couldn't get any more cringe, they introduce Lesbian.
Okay, let's back this up here.
As if Star Wars The Acolyte couldn't get any more cringe, they introduce lesbian witches who can procreate using the Force or something like that.
Yeah, weird.
This is what happens when you hire furries and people who make up their own genders to write this stuff. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this video. Now, for the first clip I have here, hopefully this doesn't get me copyright striked or anything, but
from Neurotic
posted this, got a lot of feedback, even from Elon Musk himself. I haven't seen the clip.
Yeah, I actually responded to this and even put it up on my Twitter thing. It's because it's just weird.
So we're about to experience this together. Let's see what it's about. Power one, the power of two, the power of many.
See, that's that part that I was talking about. That, and I'm going to skip through that because I don't want to possibly take the risk of getting copyright strike or anything on this. But it's just really kind of bad. And she's laughing through all this. All right, so let's
to meme together. So we've got replies here. The Critical Drinker said, I got secondhand cringe for all the poor extras in this scene. I don't even know what's happening here, says Camelot.
Well, that's just a weird thought. Can you actually imagine being an extra and you have to put that on your resume to try to get work? I guess in this day and age in Hollywood, it probably would work because they go, oh, really? You're DEI? That's great. You're hired.
Elon Musk laughed. Savvy says they couldn't even come up with a cool chant. These writers are...
They're bad.
Power one, power two.
What the? I didn't even notice that when I looked through this. That's that commercial about the how many licks does it get to take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
Power of crunch. Three. Oh my goodness. This is... If you showed this to anybody and told them, hey guys, this is Star Wars like 10 years ago, would you believe it?
Yeah, I don't know if I would have, if you asked me 10 years ago that this would actually end up being like what Star Wars is like, I would think you're crazy. It's so stupid. It's so stupid.
All right. So then Rothman shared this. The Acolyte episode 3 introduces lesbian space witches that use the Force to get pregnant.
So messed up.
Man, right? When you can use the Force and have some sort of mutant spawn, Star Wars fans. This is... I feel like, isn't there some sort of scientific, and I always talk about how a lot of this stuff is rooted in demonic undertones and how I think that...
Yeah, did you catch what she just said there?
I always talk about how a lot of this stuff is rooted in demonic undertones and how...
Demonic undertones. See, I agree with that 100%. That there is. It's demonic in nature.
I think that, I truly believe that Satan, while he's running the earth right now before Jesus returns, he's got his grubby hands in everything.
Yes,
and
he
especially,
does.
why wouldn't he in the entertainment field? We already know how corrupt Hollywood and the music industry is, and the gaming industry as well is being overtaken by it. So that's...
And this is why I wanted to hear from what MelonieMac had to say about this, because I know what she believes, and I agree with a lot of what she believes. She believes, first and foremost, that Jesus Christ is king, and that this stuff is satanic in nature, and it's not biblical, and it's not... There is a spiritual warfare that people don't pay attention to, don't realize. Everything in this world has a spiritual connotation to it, whether you realize it or not. Because like she just got through saying, Satan is going around this whole world running to and fro until Jesus does return. And he is the king of this world right now until Jesus and God banishes him to hell in the 1,000 years reign, after the 1,000 years reign. Anyway, so make no mistake, he's making everything have a demonic undertone in it, to have some type of spiritual perversion. Why? Because that's his goal in the first place, is to pervert everything that God has created.
That's why we see a lot of this, these ideologies, transgender ideologies, a lot of this feminism to the point to where, and you know, I love me some girl power. I'm a big Lara Croft fan. I love Claymore, all that stuff. But there's a difference between, hey, let's portray women in a really cool fashion versus let's make women that don't need no men. Men are useless. Women, let's have women that rule the world. It's just gotten insane. And that goes against God's design because God didn't create it that way. And while I even myself am a very hyper independent woman, I still understand and subscribe to God's order in that men are supposed to lead.
Yep.
Women
100%.
are the weaker sex, that we are the weaker vessel. We need men to lead. We need powerful, strong men. This is why this whole soy boy pandemic is such an issue for so many reasons, and women are trying to take over. Women will continually try to take over. That's sometimes part of female nature, but this is why we need strong men who can handle stuff, not subjugate women, not make every woman have to be a housewife if she doesn't want to be or anything like that. But
yeah, see, there's a difference between leading and subjugation. You're not talking about being a master over a slave or turning a woman into a slave. That's not biblical either. But what they're talking about is just like what it says in God's word, what she's talking about here, that men are supposed to love their wives like Christ loves the church. And Christ loves the church by taking care of them and loving them and leading them toward a closer relationship with God. Anyway.
But men are
I like her
supposed to be
stance
leaders.
with all this stuff.
This is one reason why you won't find me voting for a female president. Okay? One reason why, even though I love talking about the Bible and I love sharing the word of God and stuff like that, one reason why I don't pursue getting my pastoral license and all that kind of stuff, because I believe men should be leading. Women can help, and we are all called to share the gospel, share the word of God, which I do.
Amen, lady.
But
You're on
I
it.
do not have any desire to lead
Share
men,
the God's word.
as that would be against God's design. All right, so
I'm a Jesus-loving penguin that doesn't like fish. Stupid fish, Armageddon. Anyway.
let's go ahead and dive into this article too from Bounding into Comics, where they kind of describe everything further, because I need in the loop here. Okay, so yeah, retcon to Star Wars lore. Reveals, oh, and what, I missed my point, what I was going to say on this. So anyway, yeah, how I feel Satan is behind this, with the whole order of things.
100%.
Also, I mean, I've been seeing floating around different news articles or different posts on Twitter and stuff about how scientists are trying to find a way to have where women can reproduce without men. I don't know exactly how they make that work, but some sort of mutating an egg or something like that. But I will say, we do not want to see something like that actually be born, because
Agreed.
You are just asking for a demon spawn. You
see, anything that is not the way God designed it is a perversion. And that is clearly what she's talking about, is a perversion. I agree 100% with her. Could be seeing something that's a demon spawn that way. God created this male and female There's no other sexes out there. There is no other, each gender has their purpose that God designed them for. And anything outside of what he designed them to be is a perversion. And to find a way for men to give birth, that's not the way God designed it. Women are supposed to be. You know why? When's the last time you saw a guy who's really nurturing that wasn't a soy boy? We're not built that way. We're built to belch, scratch, and slap each other with fish. Women are designed, God designed them to be a nurturer at the heart of who they are. It's just the way it is. And anything outside of that is a perversion.
You are just asking for some sort of mutant that isn't human. And I think what a lot of people, especially more among the godless realm, what they fail to understand is that a human is not a human without a soul.
Pretty much.
And so if you are scientifically creating these beings, you're creating nothing but a shell of flesh that is not going to actually be human. It will be devoid of a soul, and it won't be human. And
God's
also,
the only
what
one
that
can give
is
some
an open vessel
human a
for
soul.
a demon to possess. So
Period.
that just sounds like an absolute nightmare. Hopefully Jesus returns before something like that
100% agree.
A normal thing.
Come back now, Jesus.
Because yikes. All right, so and there you have it, Star Wars fans. In sadly but unsurprisingly delivering on previous whispers, the third episode of The Acolyte has made an absolutely massive, ostensibly identity politics motivated change to one of the franchise's most pivotal pieces of original pre-Disney lore. In current Star Wars canon, the power to create life via the direct manipulation of the Force is considered a near impossible feat, even for the most storied of its users. So much so, in fact, that prior to the Acolyte's third episode, there had only ever been one individual who was reportedly able to pull it off, the infamous Sith Lord Darth Plagueis.
Yep.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Recalled Sheev Palpatine to Anakin Skywalker in Episode 3. I don't even remember how
I'm glad to see she's reading this article. I almost read this article on the screen, but I found the other one better.
Is my favorite. Revenge of the Sith is the best. I love Anakin's story.
I do like Revenge of the Sith. Out of the prequels, that is my favorite.
Star Wars.
It's 3.
So bear with me here. Darth Plagueis was a Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise he could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side that he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying, explained the soon-to-be Galactic Emperor as he manipulated the young Jedi's fear of losing Padme. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. He became so powerful, the only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew, then his apprentice unalived him in his sleep. Ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself. Interestingly, in the no longer canon pre-House of Mouse Star Wars Legends era, it was established that
the expanded universe stuff
had Plagueis actually been able to create life from the Force, but that he was directly responsible for the Immaculate Conception of Anakin Skywalker himself. As recalled in the 24th chapter of author James Luceno's 2008 Darth Plagueis novel, Drunk on Newfound Power, then he had attempted an even more unthinkable
I haven't read that
to
novel.
bring
Maybe
into
I ought to
being
get into that
a
one.
creation of his own. Not merely the...
I will tell you this much. One thing that Disney Star Wars, as of late, has got me doing, that I'm finding myself doing, is going back into more of the EU content and the books and novels and the audiobooks and things, and getting into that stuff, because it just, that brings you back to the expanded universe of Lucas's Star Wars, and not all this stupid stuff that Disney is making. Anyway.
The impregnation of some hapless, mindless creature, but the birth of a forceful being. The ability to dominate death had been a step in the right direction, but it wasn't equivalent to pure creation. And so he had stretched out, indeed, as if invisible, transubstantiated, to inform every being of his existence and impact all of them. Moonoid or insectoid, secure or dispossessed, free or enslaved, a warrior waving a banner in triumph on a battlefield, a ghost infiltrating a dream, but ultimately to no end. Oh, the author of this is very Star Wars versed.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is the real nerds, man. The real nerds. However, far from being a bust, Plagueis eventually comes to learn 9 years later that his actions resulted in the Force pushing back against his plan by using his energies to conceive not a Sith legend, but a human being to restore balance to the galaxy. Regardless of this fun bit of EU trivia, thanks to the Acolyte showrunner Leslie Headland, Plagueis is no longer the first Force user.
Yeah. Apparently Disney tried to I don't know if they tried to cancel, but they said the EU is not part of their canon of things. And I think they did that so they could, because if you look at all the stuff they created, guess what they do? They pull it from things in the EU. Like, for example, in the Ahsoka series, hello, Grand Admiral Thrawn, that was straight from the EU content, the EU books, the same stuff that Disney claims that's not a part of Star Wars, that the EU is not part of it. Guess what? They pulled from the expanded universe anyway to create their content. They're just, they're double-minded. They speak out of one side of the mouth and speak out of the other side of the mouth. And I don't think you can believe a single thing that this really says that comes out of their mouth. Simply because they are just, I don't know. I mean, with this latest show, The Acolyte, it really feels like that this is borderline just downright evil. And I don't like calling people evil. I don't feel like that's my responsibility. I think that's what God's responsibility is. Now, I will call their deeds evil. Yeah, very two-faced. Exactly. Very two-faced. But I firmly believe that they are very much just wanting to push their ideology on us. They're wanting to indoctrinate us. They want us to stop living the way we are and living the way they feel like. If they had their, I bet you right now, if you ask them honestly, and you can actually trust what their answer was. In other words, if they actually answered honestly, if you ask somebody like Leslie Headsquare, do you think everybody should be gay? I bet you her answer will be yes. It's because in their mind, that's all there is. That's all there should be. But you know, from a scientific standpoint, that's stupid. Because how do you procreate then? You have to rely upon science, and science doesn't always get it right. And not to mention, that's just pretty much how culture and how societies have failed in the past. There's a phrase out there that if you don't pay attention, I'm going to butcher this quote. If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And if you look at, not that I'm one of those males out there that like to dive into things of the Roman Empire, but if you do look at, I have studied some of their stuff. It's not something I think about a lot. But if you look in history, like in the Roman Empire itself, toward the end of their destruction, when Rome finally fell, what was their cultural footprint like? They were rampant with homosexuality. They were rampant with all kinds of sins and perversions. Men were sleeping with men. Women were sleeping with women. And it just absolutely destroyed them. And where's Rome now? They're gone. Yeah, there is Rome and Italy. That's a place. I'm talking about the actual society, the Roman Empire, so to speak. It's gone. It doesn't exist. It's because they didn't learn. We're not learning from our history. We're doomed to repeat it. These people don't have a clue. They don't understand. And I don't know where I was going with all that. Little Penguin rambling on, as always. Let's take a sip and get back into MelonieMac's content here. So take a sip of iced coffee. Sip it on down, baby. Let's go.
User to manipulate the universal life energy to create life. Instead, that honor now belongs to the newly introduced leader of an unknown band of Force-sensitive witches who, for some bizarre reason, aren't Night Sisters because, sure, Disney, why not? Mother Anastasia, as portrayed by actress Jodie Turner-Smith. You know, one thing doesn't it seem like whenever they keep trying to use a lot of the black female characters that they're introducing, that there's so many of them that they're making them involved in witchcraft? Is that just is that just me? Is that just something that I'm noticing, or is that an actual trend? It's definitely...
No, I'm starting to see that trend as well.
All right. As detailed in the show's third episode, decades before Plagueis even began his study of the Force, Anastasia used it to bring to life two embryos within her fellow witch
Mother Amnesia.
Margarita Leviva, whoever that is. The pair of which would soon after be birthed into the world as series protagonists May and OSHA.
Yeah, that's the two women that supposedly gave birth using the Force or the thread to the twins, May and OSHA.
I carried them.
OSHA regulations! Sorry.
I created them. So there you have it. Lesbian space witch covens being given credit for a lore impactful act originally done by a powerful male character, beloved fans of the franchise's pre-Disney audience. The Force is female, indeed. Crazy.
Yeah, and that's Potato Kennedy's whole goal and wish. Supposedly there's a rumor out there that supposedly when Leslie Headland came to talk to Kathleen Kennedy and pitch this idea of the Acolyte, that supposedly Kathleen Kennedy broke down and cried when they were discussing just about how awesome it would be to make the Force female and all that. Really stupid.
And oh my gosh, what do you
I don't know if that rumor's true or not, but I don't care.
This is weird. We're seeing a constant push in modern media that is, first of all, pushing lesbians on everything.
You got that right.
Pushing witchcraft.
It's in video games and everything now.
Like witch lesbians. Why is that such a common thing? And almost, it feels like any sort of black female representation oftentimes is also lesbian. They either
100%
make them lesbian.
It's because right now the push in Hollywood is you can't just be one thing anymore. You can't just be like black or Asian or whatever. You also got to be something else. So you also got to be gay, or you got to be trans, or something like that. It's not enough, which is weird in the first place, but nevertheless. But yeah, I agree 100% with what she's saying here. That they are constantly making this the case.
Being witches, or they make them appear to be very.
The only thing I can hope for is eventually they come out with
So anyway,
they run out of ideas of what they can make them to be.
This is all. This is all clown world right now. But anyway, there you have it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today.
Oh, I need to make a clown. I need to have a clown horn noise I can make when I say clown world now. I ought to do that. Instead today, I'll just do this. That is in my defiance of Leslie Head Square calling R2-D2 lesbian. He's not. He's a robot. If anything, he was always referred to as a he in the first place. And his sexual orientation was never brought up by Lucas. Come on. Actually, if anything, R2-D2 and C-3PO were put in Star Wars for kids. Hello? For kids. Could be why I like R2-D2. Because when I first saw Star Wars, I was a kid. Well, I just now put that together. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. We are at the 2-hour mark. I got maybe about another 40-45 minutes or so left here. I'm going to take a good 2 or 3 minute break, give everybody else a break to get up, maybe slap a neighbor with a fish or a refresher drink. In my case, I'm out of iced coffee. I need more iced coffee. So I'm going to go take a 2 or 3 minute break. If you need to go to the Little Penguins room, do that as well. And I'll be right back. And then we will switch to a good story, a good thought about what Star Wars originally was, about the hero's journey, example and case study. It's a really good article. I want to talk about it. So I'll be right back. Hang tight, campers. Okay, campers, I'm back. And hopefully you had a chance to go freshen up your iced coffee or whatever it is, or your coffee or whatever you're drinking. Had a chance to go to the little penguin's room if you need to, like I just did. And let's get into this last topic I want to talk about Star Wars Hero's Journey example and case study. This article, there is a YouTuber I watch sometimes out there named Robert Meyer Burnett, and he did a video. Actually, I think he did this as a podcast called Robservations. That's his podcast. Like mine's Penguin Thoughts, his is Robservations. Anyway, he talked about this particular. He went through this article and talked about it. I didn't watch all of it, but nevertheless, he went through this article, and I thought I'd read some of this. We'll see how far we can go. It's a pretty long article. I mean, take a look at this. This is how long it is. I don't know if I'm going to read all this or not. I might. Just depends on how much time I got, because I don't want to necessarily go real long today. But nevertheless, a lot of this stuff in this is really good. It's called Star Wars: A Hero's Journey Example and Case Study. Have you ever tried to apply the hero's journey to your book? It can feel overwhelming at times. Yeah, I've actually tried to do that. It can feel overwhelming. But following a great example can help. As you sit down over the holidays to watch movies with your family and friends, enjoy the show, but also consider how the writers and directors make decisions to bring your favorite stories to life. Of course, in this day and age, they don't follow this example anymore. There's not a lot of directors and writers anymore that do this much anymore nowadays in Hollywood. There are still some out there, but it's few and far between. Anyway, Star Wars works as a perfect study of how the hero's journey works and help you structure a timeless story. And this is actually, in my opinion, the reason why we as Star Wars fans, OG Star Wars fans, not Disney Star Wars fans, but Star Wars fans, Lucas Star Wars fans, are fans in the first place. And why this is a timeless story, and why it's something that's so beloved. And even normies out there, people that are not geeks like me, have heard of Star Wars, have maybe not gotten into it like us geeks do, but they still understand this story. Anyway, Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey is easily the most used and most loved storytelling structure in human history. It resonates with readers in ways that are as old as human DNA itself, and George Lucas kept this in mind when writing and producing Star Wars. This is also why there are no clearer use of the hero's journey than George Lucas's space opera Star Wars. Whether or not you particularly enjoy Star Wars, especially in light of recent Disney sequels or Disney shows, or even have seen the original trilogy, you've surely heard enough about Star Wars to recognize its primary characters, symbols, and storytelling beats. Yeah, it's so much a huge part of culture. Has been. So, a quick summary of the Star Wars hero's journey. For the uninitiated or those who haven't seen it in years, Star Wars, now called Star Wars: A New Hope, is the story of Luke Skywalker, the nephew of a moisture farmer who longs to travel the stars and fight against the mighty evil Empire. When he meets Obi-Wan Kenobi, an aged Jedi Knight, he begins his adventure alongside smugglers Han Solo and Chewbacca and droids 3PO and R2-D2. Oh yeah. There you go, R2-D2, baby! And he's not gay. The antagonists of Star Wars are two leaders of the Empire, Darth Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin. They command the Death Star, a new moon. By the way, you're thinking, first thing, Wait a minute, wasn't Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine? Yeah, but at this point, the Emperor is still kind of hidden. Okay, this is talking about Star Wars: A New Hope. Not talking about the whole trilogy yet. At this point, he's just talking about Star Wars: A New Hope. They command the Death Star, a new moon-sized station capable of destroying entire planets. In their hunt for the elusive Rebel Alliance, Vader captures Princess Leia, a young representative who is secretly a Rebel agent and also Vader's daughter, which we find out later. Anyway, to deduce the location of the Rebel secret base, Vader and Tarkin use the Death Star to destroy Leia's home planet of Alderaan. Aboard the Millennium Falcon, Luke Skywalker and his companions enter the Death Star and successfully free Princess Leia and escape, but not before Obi-Wan is killed in a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader. They fly back to the Rebel base only to realize that the Empire has been tracking them, and now the Death Star is bearing down on their secret headquarters. A grand space battle ensues, Luke piloting an X-Wing fighter craft. In the nick of time, Luke uses the Force to fire torpedoes into the Death Star's main exhaust port, blowing up the entire space station. Vader escapes in his fighter craft, but Tarkin is killed. The heroes return to a grand welcome and hope is restored to the galaxy. There is no clearer use of the hero's journey than George Lucas' space opera Star Wars. It's a perfect example of this study. Of course, there are more Star Wars films, and this analyst will allude to several of them. Talking about the guy that's writing this, which is, I forgot his name already, David Safford. And actually, he's got a website, davidsafford.com, too. He's wrote other books and stuff. So he's a writer. He understands his thing. Anyway, however, the majority of the exploration of Star Wars hero's journey will stay with the 1977 original film, as George Lucas was careful to craft a story that was heavily based on ancient archetypes that have worked for millennia. The characters of Star Wars. George Lucas began planning his space opera by sketching out the characters. He knew, like Campbell knew, that great stories are built on the foundation of great characters, something that current modern day Hollywood has totally forgot. In some cases, totally ignored. But they know, and they know better, but they don't care. First, we have the hero in Luke Skywalker. What makes him the hero? Mainly, there are three factors. And I like this. It lays it out. His goal is empathetic. Talking about Luke. His goal is empathetic. His pursuit of that goal drives the narrative. He grows and changes while pursuing that goal. On that journey, Luke comes into conflict with the story's shadow, Darth Vader. Unlike Luke, Vader's goal is to smash the rebellion against the Empire, is not empathetic. Vader's attempt to find the Death Star plans and destroy the rebels obstruct Luke's goal throughout the story. Think about it. When Luke starts out in Star Wars, he was just simply living on Tatooine as a moisture farmer with his aunt and Uncle Beru. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. But he had, this brings back the flashback of memories of one of the most iconic scenes in all of Star Wars, is when he's standing there looking at the two suns on Tatooine, and he's got that leg hiked up, and he's just kind of staring out into space. Luke is wanting more. He's visioning his goal. He wants to leave Tatooine. He wants to go join all his friends who already gone on to fight for the rebellion against the Empire. Luke makes a pair of friends or loyal retainers in Han Solo and Chewbacca the Wookiee. Their loyalty is tested, however, when the rebels choose to attack the Death Star. And while Han abandons Luke during the approach step of the hero's journey, he returns during the resurrection, providing a cathartic climax that sees evil destroyed and good triumph on multiple levels. You just can't get over how good this stuff is. How detailed and how structured Lucas created this universe. This is Universe Building 101, and it starts with the hero's journey. They're loyal. Luke isn't a mentor either. Luke isn't with a mentor either. Obi-Wan or Ben Kenobi arrives to provide both the story's call to adventure or inciting incident, and then guide Luke on the path to the way of the Jedi and the Force. As can be expected in a hero's journey, the mentor is killed. Or is he? Along the way, leaving Luke to face the shadow on his own. Finally, Luke encounters a number of Threshold Guardians who attempt to destroy him and his fellow rebel forces. Jawas, Sand People, or Tusken Raiders, for the nerds who are carefully judging this analysis. Tusken Raiders, yeah. Stormtroopers, the Trash Compactor Monster, Death Star Cannons, the TIE Fighters, and even Vader himself put themselves between Luke and his goal along the way. Here we go. This is breaking down, once again, this article is breaking down a case study of the hero's journey and how it applies to Star Wars, and how George Lucas, when he wrote Star Wars, when he envisioned Star Wars, he started with making it using the hero's journey. These character archetypes and more fill a story that is designed to follow all 12 steps of the hero's journey, often reusing or overlapping steps for maximum effect. Here's how Star Wars A New Hope uses all 12 steps as checkpoints that move its story forward with incredible storytelling power. And one moment here, I just thought I might bring this up. I want to say I have an actual picture of the hero's journey, if I can find it. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, here we go. Let me see if I can open it. One moment. All right, let's switch over to okay, this right here is the hero's journey. This is what we're talking about here. Picture this as like Luke. It's called Call to Adventure, Supernatural Aid. That would be like the Force, Obi-Wan leading him, Threshold Guardians. You got the known and you got the unknown. Beginning of transformation using a helper like Obi-Wan or a mentor. Challenges and temptations. You got another helper, possibly helping along there like Han and Leia and so forth, and Chewbacca. revelation, the abyss, death and rebirth, transformation, atonement, return, and so forth. So that's the hero's journey in a nutshell. That's what we're talking about here. It's a writing tool designed to help writers create a good story, to have a structure to building their universe. Let's get back to the article here. All right. Says, step 1, the ordinary world. Ordinary world, Luke lives in Tatooine but doesn't like it. Like all heroes, his eyes are drawn to the horizon where he longs to achieve heroic deeds in the rebellion against the Empire. That's that vision I was talking about where he's looking at the two sons of Tatooine, and you hear that awesome Star Wars music. You know, I can't do it. You know what I'm talking about. It's if you've ever watched Star Wars, it's burned into your skull. You got it. Then you have step 2, the call to adventure. After buying a pair of seemingly inconsequential robots, basically R2-D2 and C-3PO, Luke discovers that his R2 droid contains Death Star plans and can help the rebels destroy this planet-killing weapon. Obi-Wan Kenobi then calls Luke to action, saying, "You must learn the ways of the Force if you're to come with me to Alderaan." Step 3, the refusal of the call. Luke balks at this invitation. So, well, I don't know. I got responsibilities here on Tatooine. I don't know if I could do this. Overwhelmed at the sudden change sweeping his life, I can't get involved. I've got work to do. It's not like I like the Empire. I hate it. But there's nothing I can do about it right now. It's such a long way from here. Because Tatooine's out there on the edge of the galaxy. Almost at a place where the Empire really hasn't reached too strong of a hold on. I mean, obviously we see them when they go to Mos Eisley. We see stormtroopers and so forth, but it's still, even then, it's not like it is you're living like on Coruscant or something. Anyway, step 4, meeting the mentor. Technically, Luke has already met his mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, but the act of mentoring begins when Luke hurries home, only to find the compound burning and his aunt and uncle murdered by stormtroopers of the Empire. I don't think this can be overstated, to be honest with you. Because this right here, I see this as Luke's talking to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's trying to convince him he needs to study the Force and come with him to Alderaan. And Luke doesn't want to do it, reluctant to do it because he feels like he has to stay there to take care, to help out his aunt and uncle. But what pushes him over the edge, that makes him decide, okay, I got to do this. I got to step up and be the hero. Is now there's nothing left for him on Tatooine. His aunt and uncle are dead by stormtroopers of the Empire looking for those droids. Luke stands before Obi-Wan. He's heartbroken. There's nothing you could have done, Luke. Had you been there, you would have been killed with them too, and Obi-Wan's correct about that. The droids would have been in the hands of the Empire. Then Luke commits to joining the old Jedi and venturing into the unknown toward Alderaan. This is the decision when Luke decides to go on the hero's journey. And I think the death, it's really just so cool to me to see Lucas's forethought about all this. His planning, the details and the minutia that he took in creating Star Wars. And he knew that this would be the thing to where Luke is reluctant to go on this journey. Matter of fact, you see symbolism in that in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Especially if you've ever seen like Peter Jackson's The Hobbit, The Unexpected Journey. You see where Bilbo is reluctant to go on this journey. But eventually he decides to go. This is Luke's moment right here to do the same thing. He's got nothing left for him on Tatooine, and he decides, okay, I've got nothing to lose. Let's do this. Crossing the threshold, step 5. The story then pauses to show how consequential this choice is, showing Luke, Obi-Wan, and the droid standing atop a massive cliff. They look down in the valley below, then Obi-Wan utters, "Mos Eisley Spaceport. You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious." In other words, you are taking a step, Luke, here out of your safe world that you had, and now you're stepping into a world that is not safe. You're going to be on a journey. You're going to be on an adventure of peril at times. We need to be cautious. We need to think this thing through. We need to be able to do things wisely here. It is at this point that our hero, Luke, crosses from the safe and familiar to the unknown, the unfamiliar. Step 6. Trials, allies, and enemies. Luke begins the middle of the story by acquiring a pair of allies. Basically, Han Solo and Chewbacca. However, he also encounters an enemy when a disfigured man accosts him at the bar. And that's when we see that great scene where Obi-Wan, whips out his lightsaber and hacks off the guy's arm. The conflict escalates as Luke and his companions escape from Tatooine. They infiltrate the Death Star, rescue Princess Leia, who seems to play the archetypal role of the damsel in distress. But Leia is no damsel in distress. I mean, she's cast that way, but she's not really that way. But with no distress whatsoever. They survive the trash compactor. They disable the tractor beam so they can escape. They escape the Death Star thanks to Obi-Wan's sacrifice. Yeah, Vader, by the way, Vader didn't kill Obi-Wan without Obi-Wan letting it happen. Obi-Wan chose, because I think Obi-Wan knew that he could better help Luke by A, causing a distraction with his sacrifice, and B, more importantly, he could show up and guide Luke as a Force ghost, which we see later on. If it seems like this summary has hit the fast forward button, it does for a reason. Step 6 is the longest step in any heroic journey. This is the meat of the story, but often contains scenes that shrink down the entire structure into a chapter or two. In the case of Star Wars, one can see numerous calls to adventure, refusals, threshold crossings, the gaining of an ally or knowledge of an enemy, approaching an ordeal, the ordeal itself, often with a self-contained resurrection and then a reward. This is story structure 101. Any hero's journey will contain smaller, miniature heroic journeys within the same structure of the story. In other words, you have the overarching hero's journey that the whole universe and story is driven by, but within that you got little tiny mini heroic journeys happening as well. It may not be even just Luke, it may be somebody else stepping in to the heroic journey. Because think about it, you also see that a little bit in even in Star Wars A New Hope with Han. Han at one point wasn't going to help out, then he changes his mind and helps out. That's his little miniature heroic journey as well. The approach. Having escaped the Death Star, the heroes fly to Yavin 4, where the rebel base has been hidden. The Death Star plans are extracted from R2-D2, and a weakness is indeed found. The fighter pilots receiving a briefing about this weakness and plan their strategy. In other words, the exhaust hole portal that Luke fires the photon torpedoes into. Meanwhile, Han Solo decides not to join the rebels. See, this is his little thing. So, no, I'm not going to do it. Deeming the attack my idea of suicide. Because Han's, he's out for, at this point, Han's not really hero material. Han is he is a scoundrel. He's all about Han. He's all about the grift. He's all about the financial reward. He's about taking financial reward for rescuing Princess Leia and flees with Chewbacca, leaving Luke alone with a bunch of characters the audience doesn't even know, and Luke doesn't know really either. I mean, he knows Wedge, but that's about it. Oh, excuse me. All right. Take a sip. Might get a little parched. I got to sip some iced coffee while I'm reading this and while we're discussing things. Step 8 in the hero's journey of Star Wars. The ordeal. Luke and his fellow fighter pilots attack the Death Star. Facing skilled enemies in TIE fighters and Darth Vader himself in his own special TIE fighter, advanced TIE fighter, one of Luke's childhood friends is killed in the assault, Biggs. The reward. The reward occurs twice in this story. Star Wars contains 2 reward steps. One is the false reward, while the second is the true reward. First, the heroes are rewarded with safety and freedom after escaping the Death Star. And the story pauses to enjoy this moment of low tension. However, the tension ratchets up again when Han Solo makes it clear that he only cares about his financial reward, which is indeed a false one, according to the movie's moral theme. That's something you don't see these days either in most modern Hollywood productions of any kind, be it on streaming services or even in the movie theaters. They don't have a lot of morals to them anymore. It's all about the message. Anyway, the second reward eventually comes at the end of the hero's journey, step 12. Step 10, the road back. This occurs twice in this story. The first road back is the backdrop for the first reward, which showcases Han's conflicting loyalties. It is the fake-out ending, meant to lead the viewer into thinking that the story is resolved because the heroes escaped from the Death Star. They thought, oh, it's done and over with. But it's not. There's more to it. The resurrection, step 11. Rewinding back to the ordeal, attack on the Death Star, the scene climaxes as Luke is navigating a narrow trench, which is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, is the trench run. Oh, man. And that is so much fun to play in a video game as well. I love doing trench runs. Anyway, the scene climaxes as Luke is navigating a narrow trench in his X-Wing fighter toward the target with Darth Vader screaming at his heels. Luke and the rebels are about to be destroyed by Vader and the Death Star, as the planned attack is not going as hoped. Then a voice calls out to Luke. Use the Force, Luke. Let go, Luke. It's the voice of his disembodied mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Force ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We don't see him, but we hear him. Luke switches off the targeting computer, closes his eyes, and fires his torpedoes. And of course, we also see, conventional wisdom of the leadership of the rebels. Is like, Luke, is something wrong? You just shut off your targeting computer. And he goes, no, I'm okay. And he uses the Force, and we know, as always, the Death Star explodes. This also coincides with the personal and relational resurrection of Han Solo, when he proves his true loyalty and helps Luke outwit Vader and destroy the Death Star. Because Han shows up at the last and takes on cover fire to give Luke the opportunity to make another run at the exhaust port. The viewer receives the satisfaction of having seen a man mortally die only to find life again by doing what is morally right. That's something you don't see nowadays. Someone making a morally correct decision. Ah! And finally, we get to step 12. Return with the elixir. When Luke, Han, and Chewie return, they don't just bring safety and security to the rebellion, they bring hope. The titular value of the whole film. I think, that, to be honest with you, I think this is another reason why Star Wars fans, OG Star Wars fans, are so diehard fans. Because it was, if you look at even the prequels, all 6 of those movies, 1 through 6, there is still the underlying tone of hope in the galaxy. It brings a message of hope. What's the message now of Disney Star Wars? It ain't one of hope. What is it? Oh. Sewing threads? Gay lesbian witches who produce 2 kids? Yeah. Ooh. That's really earth-shattering storytelling there. Not! Anyway. This is also where the second true reward comes in. The medals the characters receive may not seem like much. And it's not about the medals, but they symbolize the new identity of the wearers. Heroes. Luke begins as a simple farm boy. Now he's a hero of the rebellion who brings hope to the galaxy. And I honestly believe that's why Star Wars is so great. I'm talking about OG Lucas, George Lucas's Star Wars, not Disney Star Wars. That's an abomination. I'm convinced even more. Like I said, Star Wars is what we knew. When Disney took it over, they killed it. They took it out back and shot it with a shotgun. And ever since, they have been kicking it like a dead horse. It wasn't even lame. It wasn't lame till Disney started making it. Anyway. We'll go a little bit longer and then I'm going to let you read it on your own because this is really long. I'm not even halfway through all this. I think we'll stop at the themes of Star Wars. Okay? And then we will call it there. So let's continue on here. The scenes of Star Wars. Within its tightly designed structure, Star Wars makes it sure it forces its hero to deal with archetypal heroic situations or scenes. Here's how the Star Wars hero journey shows these scenes. First and foremost, the choice to go. It's a choice. Think about what would happen with Star Wars if Luke decided to stay on Tatooine. There wouldn't be any Star Wars. It'd be just done. After suffering the loss of his aunt and uncle, Luke realizes that he must confront the threat of the Empire himself. The Empire, who is so far away from him, he thought, has now all of a sudden shown up at his doorstep, and he has to choose what he's going to do about it. He declares to Obi-Wan, I want to come with you to Alderaan. There's nothing here for me now. I've got nothing to lose, in other words. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father. The initiation. Soon after his choice to go, Luke is initiated into the world he has chosen. First, he faces physical threats, like the bullies in Mos Eisley Cantina and the Empire's merciless stormtroopers, while escaping on the Millennium Falcon. But he also faces his first initiation in the way of the Jedi when he uses a lightsaber for the first time. Luke shows growth by doing as Obi-Wan says, to stretch out with his feelings. This is when they're on the Millennium Falcon and he's got that helmet with the blast shield down and he can't see, and Obi-Wan, and he's going against that drone and he keeps getting shot, and that's when Obi-Wan says, stretch out with your feelings, Luke. Use the Force. Don't use your eyes, because Luke complains first thing, I can't see what's going on. The Force is not about using your eyes. It's about reaching out and feeling the drone and the location. And that's when we see him block that first shot with the blaster down. I mean, the second shot. Because the first shot with the blaster shield down on his helmet, he gets shot. And that's when Obi-Wan says, hey, I'll reach out to the Force. Anyway, that's his initiation here. The task. Luke doesn't have much time to train as a Jedi, though. And actually, if this was back during the prequels, Luke would never been trained as a Jedi. He's too old. Luke doesn't have much time to train as a Jedi, though, because soon he is pulled into the Death Star with the other heroes. After learning that the Princess of Alderaan, Leia Organa, is about to be executed, Luke makes it his mission to rescue her. That's a choice he made. Once again showing he's a hero. Whether or not he sees himself as a hero or not, he is one. In a thrilling scene filled with disguises, witty banter, laser shootouts, Luke successfully rescues Leia from her metallic prison. Matter of fact, at one point, Leia's even saying, this is a rescue? Something to that effect. It's like, really? She doesn't even believe that this is, it's going to help her. Next, we see all hope is lost. This scene occurs just before the resurrection as Luke speeds down the Death Star trench in his X-Wing fighter. Jumping between scenes in Luke's ship, the Death Star control room, and the Rebel base on Yavin 4. Two things occurred nearly simultaneously. First, the Death Star pulls within firing range of the Rebel base and begins powering up its planet-killing weapon. Second, Darth Vader successfully shoots R2-D2 in Luke's ship, causing Luke to cry, I've lost R2! No, not R2! And by the way, just so you know, in Star Wars lore, the reason why an X-Wing or all these ships have R2 units, they're there to help them with ship systems. Because the ship is so complicated that it needs an additional person or additional, in this case, a droid to help them fly it. I mean, they do things like, keeping shields up and running and changing power levels and routing power to other different things and so forth. So, I mean, for Luke to be flying all of a sudden in this trench run and loses R2, gets shot by Vader, Luke's got to be thinking, well, this is not good. He's got to feel pretty hopeless at this point. And in this moment, it seems like the bad guys are certainly going to win. Then we get to the return with blessings. But a miracle happens. Han Solo, who we thought was gone, who is no longer interested, helps knock off Vader off Luke's tail. Luke hits a bullseye with his torpedoes, exploding the Death Star in a massive blast. The heroes return to Yavin 4, embrace one another, and celebrate. But then we see a colossal ceremony with hundreds of rebels in uniform. That's that ceremony scene they were seeing. They were watching them come up to Leia. Leia's standing up there, and she's getting ready to hand out these, medals to them. They stand at attention to honor the victorious heroes who are decorated with medals. And those hundreds of rebels, stand-ins for the audience, applaud as incredible hope floods their spirits. You went from a moment of feeling completely hopeless when R2 got shot and thinking, well, how's he going to do this now? All things are lost. And all of a sudden seeing Han Solo, if I could speak, Han Solo stepping in and helping out. And bringing back hope. So, there you go. And I don't remember if I put the link to this article down in the description of this live stream, but I will check that after I end the stream here. But that way you can kind of read this for yourself if you want the rest of it, because I wasn't even halfway through on this. It's a really long article, and I do recommend you read it. It is really good. To me, I read it. It started bringing back those tingles and good feelings I had when I saw Star Wars growing up as a little gosling, and the hope that Star Wars brings back to you. Not this junk and filth and evil spew that Disney is spewing out. Not that. That ain't Star Wars. I don't know what it is, but it ain't Star Wars. It's an abomination. It's demonic. It's evil. It's crap. And I don't say that word lightly. It's worse than Bantha Poodoo. It's worse than having to deal with the fishes in the fish Armageddon. They're going to rise up. You got to be prepared. No, hatching is when you first hatch. Gosling's when you're growing up. I didn't see Star Wars as a baby. I saw Star Wars when I was 7 years old. I was a gosling then. Anyway, just had to make that distinction for parent, because what's he understand? He's not a penguin. He's a wolf guy or something. Anyway, I am going to end it there. You have been graciously watching and listening to this crazy, silly penguin ramble on about how bad Disney Star Wars is, and hopefully about how good OG Star Wars was and is, and how, to me, Star Wars is episodes 1 through 6, and it'll always be that, and that's the way it should be, and the way it is. I do like Clone Wars because Lucas was involved in some of that. I'm talking about the animated show. But aside from that, not much else. The rest of the stuff was meh. Like Mandalorian season 1 and 2, I liked it. Did I have an overwhelming feeling that it was Star Wars? Not really. But was it good? Yeah. Season 3 wasn't. Boy, that was about as bad as Book of Boba Fett or Ahsoka. Or now, guess what? The worst series of them all. The Acolyte. I still say the only two things I like about the Acolyte show, which is weird, is the aesthetics. In other words, they actually use real props. But even then, some of those props don't look all that great. But it's better than using the volume all the time. and I like Master Soul, which is kind of odd because he's the one character that actually doesn't speak English. Did you know that? He doesn't speak English in real life. He only speaks, I think it's like Chinese or Korean. I forget which he is. Either way, he's an Asian actor that doesn't speak English, and he sounds more relatable and delivers his dialogue as an actor better than anybody else in the show, in my opinion. Other than that, the rest of it's just all pure junk. It's stupid. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. I got to go get ready to take on some more fish, and I need some more iced coffee. And I'm probably going to, maybe the thing I may do later on, I want to get into some good Star Wars. Maybe I might stream here in a little bit, playing like Star Wars, The Old Republic, which is a good immersive Star Wars show, series. Yeah, I can't get into The Walking Dead. My brother's trying to talk me into it, but I just can't. I don't like zombies. I just never really have. I'm someone that doesn't like horror stuff. I don't like scary stuff. I don't like, and I know you're probably thinking, well, zombies aren't necessarily horror, but yeah, they're scary to me a little bit. I put them in the same category as sharks. I don't like sharks either. Anyway, as always, yeah, I may even do Lego. I don't know. Lego's pretty chill. But if I do, I will probably play maybe episode 4, because I'm really feeling like I want to play like something related to episode 4, Star Wars: A New Hope. Anyway, I'm the crazy little Star Wars penguin named Whataboutbob, and may the Force be with you. Not a sewing needle thread, but the Force that George Lucas put forth, or like I like to say, may the fish be with you. Later, peeps. Catch you later on the flip side.